We are today on our eighth lesson about Tfilah services. Okay, we either today's the last one, or maybe it's next week. I have all the time about that. Okay, very good. But did I share? No, I didn't share. Hold on, sharing the screen. Okay, now we're also sharing the screen.
Oh, yeah.
So as you remember, last week we met in the sanctuary and we went over the Shabbat services and how they work and sort of like their structure, and we talked about the part of reading from the Torah. Okay, you remember we met in the sanctuary and we took out the Torah. We saw how the Torah is written. How do you have an aliyah? What are the blessings you say? The different customs of how to do it, etc., and the whole procession in respect for the Torah. If you haven't watched it, it's on YouTube. Okay, was it new stuff for anyone here? Okay, George, I'm not surprised. Some new stuff. Okay, so some stuff was new. Yeah, Eileen. Yeah. Okay. Good. So I'm happy about that, and today I want to talk about a few other things during the prayer. One of them is on, and I want to use again the Harlow Sidurim that was edited by Rabbi Jules Harlow. He passed away a few weeks ago and was a great scholar, and it's on page 708. No, I'm sorry. Let's start with 704. Okay. On page 704, we have an interesting example. You know, we say that Judaism really is a religion that touches on all grounds of our lives and all of our life cycles. When we're born, there's a ceremony, okay? When we die, there's a ceremony, and in between that, Judaism is everywhere, is present in every move we take, every breath we take. It's very, you could be, like they say, like, professional Jew is someone that gets paid, but even if you're an observant Jew, it's like, you work for Judaism. I mean, basically your whole life is around the clock, minding all the time, what does Judaism have to say about this? What does Judaism have to say about that? And it's every moment of your life, you're engaged in something else that has to do with Judaism. When you wake up in the morning, you say a blessing as you step off of bed. Okay, when you put on your shoes, okay, they tell you which shoe to put on first. Okay, when you go to the bathroom, okay, you wash your hands in a certain way when you leave, and you say a blessing after you leave the restroom every time. Okay, and it just like goes on, and the purpose is to always have you mindful of everything that you're doing. Okay, you're mindful of the spiritual meaning of it. It's a very mindful religion in that sense. Okay, when you eat, you say a blessing before you eat. You say a blessing after you eat. Of course, you have to watch what you're eating. We're going to talk about that when we get to keeping kosher. Okay, you can't just eat anything you want. You constantly have to be aware of God's presence in your life, and to enact it also in everything that you do. So prayer is a very big part of it, because there are a lot of blessings, okay, that we bless God for the good things that we have in this life. We don't take anything for granted. Okay, when we see a rainbow in the sky, there's a special blessing. We'll see it in a minute. So here on page 704, when we see the new moon, there's a special blessing as well. Okay, And that blessing happens once a month. It's a beautiful blessing. We're using these Sidurim today. Yisrael Shalom. We're on page 705. And blessing of the new month. Okay, you can see on page 705 on the left side. In the second paragraph, praised are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, whose word created the heavens, whose breath created all that they contain. Statutes and seasons he set for them, that they should not deviate from their assigned task. Happily, gladly, they do the will of their Creator, whose work is dependable. To the moon he spoke, renew yourself, crown of glory for those who are born in the womb, who also are destined to be renewed and to extol their Creator for his glorious sovereignty. Praise are you, Lord, who renews the month. Okay, so there's a blessing when we see the beginning of the moon. There's a special blessing that you say.
Rabbi,
Okay, yeah.
since when there's a new moon, you don't see anything.
I know.
How did they actually determine when the new moon was? Could they count from the full moon previously?
Well, they knew it's every 29 or every 30 days. Okay, so they would just know that it's about to come. And then there would be people who would go out on the 29th day or the 30th day. They would go out and they would watch to see if the moon, there would be places where the sky would be clear enough that they would start to see like a little bit of the moon. And then they would know that the day that passed was the first day, or this is going to be the first day. Okay. So according to that, they sort of like knew if it's like 29 days month, so they only had one day because they would see it. And if it was like, if they saw it and it was too big, so they knew it was like the 29th and the 30th was like the first days of the new month.
Is this where they also lit fires on the mountain?
Yeah, exactly.
Everybody know?
And then they would let everyone know that this is the new moon. Okay. Okay, now we go on the next page, and on page 708, we have different interesting blessings. For example, upon smelling fragrant spices, we say, praised are you, Lord, our God, King of the universe, who creates various spices. So just upon smelling, something good, enjoying life, and, a good smell that comes from nature, you say a blessing, you're thankful. You're like, oh God, what a beautiful smell. Okay, so it's so there are different, all these on page 708, these are all has to do with different blessing. One is upon smelling the fragrance of trees or shrubs, upon smelling the fragrance of herbs or plants, upon smelling fragrant fruit. So it's different kinds. On 709, you see also upon smelling fragrant oils. So there are different kind of good smells that you do. Now, on page 709, you see the next one is upon seeing wonders of nature, including lightning, shooting stars, vast desert, high mountains, and a sunrise. Okay? So when you see these things, you say a blessing. You're appreciative of the beautiful nature. Upon hearing thunder or upon seeing a storm, you say, praise are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, whose power and might fill the whole world. So there's a reaction. You could say, wow, or you could say, what is this? You could say different things, but if you say a blessing, you're mindful to God's presence in the universe, and you're thankful for that, and you're blessing God for creating that nature. Upon seeing a rainbow, you remember I told you there's a blessing on page 709. Praise are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who remembers his covenant, is faithful to it, and keeps his promise. So we saw one in Hawaii, and we didn't know if we need to say the blessing or not because it wasn't a full rainbow. Okay, By the way, why is the blessing on the rainbow like that?
Would that be?
Who remembers his covenant, is faithful to it, and keeps his promise. What promise did God make regarding that has to do with the rainbow? Do you remember?
No more floods.
With Noah floods, right? Exactly. So after,
No, there'll be, was it a fire next time or?
yeah, no. So God brought out the rainbow after the flood to sort of like guarantee to Noah, don't worry. Every time it starts raining, okay, you'll see the rainbow afterwards, and you'll know there's not going to be flood again, because Noah is like, how do I know you're not going to do this again? Okay. On 7:10, upon seeing trees blossoming for the first time in the year, you also say a beautiful blessing. Upon seeing the ocean, you say, praise are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who has made the great sea. Now, you don't say that every time you drive on Hawthorne Boulevard, okay, which is what I do every day. You do it the first time after, so then different people say after a year that you haven't seen the ocean, okay? Or some people say after 30 days, okay? Because or else it would become redundant also, right? It's like, saying it's like, I won't appreciate anymore. So if you haven't been home for 30 days and you come back and you see the sea, Sheila, okay, I don't know if you saw the ocean, okay? So you get to say the blessing, okay? Page 710 at the bottom, upon seeing trees or creatures of striking beauty, you say, praise are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who has such beauty in his world. Okay, so when you see something really, really beautiful, okay, you say, you appreciate that. There's a beautiful saying about Rabban Gamliel, who was one of the most important rabbis in the time of the temple. He was standing on the temple, and he saw this beautiful, beautiful looking girl walking by. She's non-Jewish, okay, blonde, blue eyes, and he said this blessing, okay? And the rabbi is like, she's a shiksa. Is like, what are you doing, Rabbi? You shouldn't be looking even. He said, when I see something beautiful, so beautiful that God has created, you have to appreciate it, and you have to say that as well. Okay, so he said this blessing, and right, so every time you see something special like that, you still have to acknowledge it. Okay, on page 711, another very interesting blessing, upon seeing a person distinguished in Torah studies. So if you see a great rabbi, okay, someone who knows the Talmud by heart, who's written many, many books, who's a great scholar, okay, you say this blessing. Upon seeing one who is distinguished in worldly learning. So it's interesting, it's not only for Jews. If you see a non-Jew who's great learning, a philosopher, someone, who's extraordinary, okay, a Harvard professor. I mean, these days, again, depends on, faculty of Harvard, okay? So you say this blessing. Upon seeing a head of state, okay, you say, praise are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who has given of his glory to flesh and blood. Okay, so when you see the President of the United States in person, not on TV, okay, you say this blessing. Okay, I got to say this blessing once when I saw the President of Israel. Okay, so I said the blessing in front of him. It was very, very moving. Okay, upon hearing good news, you say, Hatov Amativ, praise are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who is good and beneficent. By the way, this blessing, you also say when you bring good wine to the table. So on Shabbat night, Shabbat dinner, okay, let's say you have your Kiddush wine bottle, which is usually not that great, okay, the grape juice or something like that, Meneshevet. You drink that for the Kiddush. You don't put the good wine bottle on the table. You keep it in the kitchen. And then, because on the regular Kiddush wine, you say Borei Pri Hagafen, okay, you say the Kiddush blessing. But when you bring the good wine, you open it up in a special way, and then when you serve that one, you say this blessing, okay, God who is good and beneficent. Okay, you sort of like praise him for that good stuff that he does. However, on page 712, upon hearing bad news, you say, praise are you, Lord, our God, King of the universe, the true judge. Okay, so when someone passes away, okay, you say that blessing. Okay, when you hear those bad news. And when you are yourself someone who's mourning because you lost someone in your family, okay, so when you go to the funeral home and they tear your clothes, we'll talk about that when we talk about, mourning and Shiva and, and all of that. We'll have a special section. But when you tear your clothes, you say this blessing, the true judge, okay, because we sort of like accept God's decrees, and if we accept the Mishnah explains this and says like how can you say like true judge, okay, to God when he's doing something, when something bad like this happens. So if we praise God when good things happen, so we also need to to acknowledge God's presence and ruling of the universe also when bad things happen to us. It's not an easy thing, but this is sort of like the theology that's behind this. Upon visiting a place where one experienced a miraculous rescue, okay, so you say, praise are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who granted me a miracle in this place.
Rabbi?
Yeah?
Some of this, particularly this one, is very similar to what you say when you're called up to the Torah. If you have
A gomel?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we're going to say that. We're going to see that in a minute. But that's a good point. Yeah?
It's just a practical question. I mean, how do you, is there like a little abridged version that you carry with you during the day that allows you to, on a daily basis to know which one, or
Yeah.
your most?
It's called Google.
Yeah.
Okay. And if Jewish Google.
You put a reminder in there.
And if you say, I have an Android, so I have to say, okay, Google, what's the blessing you say when you see a rainbow in the sky?
According to Netevia, blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who remembers the covenant and is faithful to his covenant and keeps his promise.
That's very impressive.
I told you don't need a rabbi. You
And
just
that was
need
in English.
What? Well, because I asked in English. I could ask in Hebrew as well. I have Hebrew on my Google phone. Okay.
Wait a minute, if you ask in Hebrew, see what happens.
Oh, I have to see if it recognizes.
I'm gonna put Google on the spot here.
Right. Because I have to change. Okay, Google. איזה ברכה אומרים כשרואים קשת בשמיים?
According to Wikipedia, Abraham Lincoln was an American.
Okay, I have to switch the system to Okay. Okay, so now on page 712, we see upon attaching a mezuzah to a doorpost. Okay, last week I went to Irv Levine's new home. Okay, and we attached a mezuzah there. Okay, and when you put it on, you say this blessing as well when you fix a mezuzah. And on page 712 at the bottom, a very famous blessing is the Shechianu upon wearing new clothes or using something new for the first time. I would ask also when you're eating fruit for the first time of the year, okay, and on any special occasion it happens the first time, okay, let's say, we had the gala a few months ago, so we said the Shechianu because it's the first time we gathered for the gala that year, okay, so the Shechianu is used, sometimes it's abused actually, because people say Shechianu for everything, okay, so it needs to be kept, in a proper way, but it means, praise are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, for granting us life, for sustaining us, and for helping us to reach this day, okay, so we're acknowledging that this is new, and we're acknowledging this new special moment.
Rabbi,
Yeah?
the other question. When I was growing up, whenever I got, say, new clothes, my father would say, wear it in good health. Now, is there a relationship here? There may have been a Yiddish expression, which I didn't know. But anytime something like that, he would always say that.
Yeah, I heard that. It's a beautiful expression. I think it goes to, I don't know if there's any Jewish origin to it. I just think it comes from a place where clothes were very expensive, and everyone would have one, two
Right.
sets of clothes, not more than that. So, like they basically want to say, keep it very carefully because we're not getting you a new one,
Right.
yeah, for the next, depends, when it was, yeah.
According to everything that I've seen, what you showed us this morning, there are words like everything, all, and total, which embrace the Jewish religion.
It's very total.
Because there's
Yeah.
no exit. There doesn't have to be an exit,
Yeah,
but there's no exit.
yeah, there's no exit, and even when you're buried, there are a lot of blessings, that send you off, and even, and then people say Kaddish on you when you pass away. It's like you're always sort of like in the system and always mindful of that. It's a very mindful religion. Like we talked today about mindfulness. It's like a new thing, right? They say like have like mindfulness eating. Judaism has mindfulness eating. We're going to get to that in a minute, to those blessings, okay? But the last blessing I wanted to show you here is I'm traveling, okay? I got to say this morning because I was traveling to the airport, okay? So there's a blessing that you say when you drive or go out of town. They didn't have cars back then. So when you are approximately 4 miles out of town, you say a blessing. Why do you say it only after 4 miles and not after 1 mile? Because you might go back home. Because you might say, you know what? I forgot something. I'll go back. But if you're 4 miles off and you're already on a donkey, it was like, you know what? Forget it. So, someone already, will take care of it or not, or it's like it's gone. There's nothing to do anymore. And you don't want to say a blessing in vain. Okay, there's the sages are very careful. Don't just say a blessing for anything. If you don't see a rainbow, don't say the blessing on the rainbow. You can only say when it happens, and you have to be careful with these blessings when you utter them out of your mouth. So this blessing is sort of like God protect me on my journey. Okay, so it says, may it be your will, Lord, our God and God of our ancestors, to guide us in peace, to sustain us in peace, to lead us to our desired destination in health and joy and peace, and to bring us home in peace. Save us from every enemy and disaster on the way, and from all calamities that threaten the world. Bless the work of our hands. And by the way, some people, like I myself, add also, save us from car accidents, save us from dangerous drivers, okay, etc. Bless the work of our hands. May we find grace, love, and compassion in your sight, and in the sight of all who see us. Hear our supplication, for you listen to prayer. And supplication, praise are you, Lord, who hears prayer. Okay, so this is a blessing when you travel. My father, okay, Rabbi Michael Graetz, I see he might be even online here, it's my mother. So he wrote a beautiful prayer for the driver, okay? And that prayer for the driver made it into the Israeli prayer book of the conservative movement in Israel. And it's basically saying, God help me as a driver, okay, to drive in a careful way, not to drive tired, to be courteous on the road, to give the right of way for other people, not to be upset. All these things that would get me to be a better driver, okay? And it was very popular prayer. He wrote, I think, in the 1980s or 1990s. It was even like in the newspapers in Israel. It was, and then they printed thousands of them and they gave it to drivers on cards. So people would like keep it in the car and would say the prayer before starting to drive.
You should bring it to Los Angeles.
Yeah, it's actually in English also. Yeah.
Think it would help?
Here's, I don't know if it would help,
But that's a good idea. We could print it out, on CNT cards and give it to people.
It raises an interesting question, because you said it was just recent. On all of these blessings, were they implemented at different times?
So each one is for a different time, right? So when you see a rainbow, you say it.
No,
When
I
you
just
drive.
mean when they were
So,
written.
Oh, that's a very good question. That's a very good question. The Talmud in Tractate Blessings, Barachot, basically brings them all together, but it doesn't say who wrote it and when. So it's
So
quite
it did
an
actually
enigma.
bring together at that point the whole school.
Yeah, so the assumption is that it's probably from, maybe some people say it's like from the times of Anshe Knesset Agdolah, which is like the big assembly, probably on the year 200 BC. Okay, that's the assumption, but there's no proof to that. I think these blessings evolved throughout the years until they were sort of codified. I just want to go, keep one finger like this. I want to go to something that Larry mentioned before that's important for us to see, but we're going to go back to where we were. So please turn to page 402, okay? This is a very important blessing. Not a lot of people know about it, but Larry mentioned it, so people know about it, but they don't know, they sometimes forget it. And you should know it and you should use it as well. On page 403, okay, you see on the left side, it says Birkat Agomel. So after you have an aliyah to the Torah, if something's special to you, and it says a bracha, a blessing is recited by one who has recovered from serious illness, one who has returned safely from a long journey, or one who has survived any type of danger, including childbirth. So a woman who was pregnant and gave birth, okay, that's a life-threatening situation, okay? Even today, we never know what happens, right? If you were ill and now you've recovered, if you came back from a long trip, okay, again, Sheila, okay? So you would come to synagogue on Shabbat, you would request an aliyah, and you would recite this blessing. Praise are you, Lord, our God, King of the universe, who graciously bestows favor upon the undeserving, even as he has bestowed favor upon me. Okay, so I'm really thanking God for delivering me out of this situation. Okay, and then the congregation responds, may he who has been gracious to you continue to favor you with all that is good. Okay, so it's like a special acknowledgement. Thank you, God, for returning me back to home, to my community, and now I'm back to business after I acknowledge that. After car accidents, people come and say that. Has anyone ever said that prayer? Okay, so I encourage you to start using it.
We've ever specifically done that, although in calling up for an aliyah, someone might have asked, have you
Right.
made a journey or whatever, but I don't think they actually did the blessing. So
Okay, so I encourage you to start using it. So, once hopefully nothing bad ever happens to you, but if you do recover from illness, childbirth, that's a good thing, but still, a pregnant woman after giving childbirth, she comes and recites this in front of the congregation. Okay, go back, please, to page 714. And now, food. We're going to talk a lot about food when we come to keeping kosher, but today we're talking about prayers and all the prayers that have to do around food, and different foods have different blessings. This is a very complicated issue, okay? Because if you see a strawberry and you want to eat a strawberry, it comes from the field, so it's a different kind of blessing for an apple that comes from the tree. Okay, so you need to know where these things grow. You need to be connected to the world, to reality, to nature, to know each category of these things. Okay, so for bread, we have on page 714, Hamotzi lechem min haaretz, right?
mm-hmm.
Praise are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who brings forth bread from the earth. Okay, now, does God bring the bread from the earth? No, it's human beings, right? But do human beings find it on earth? Okay, no, they find the wheat. Okay, so we say a blessing on the combination of what human beings created, which is the bread, with what God provided from earth. Okay, it's sort of like a combination of the delight of the ability of human beings to take a basic product like the wheat and create it into bread. So the blessing is specifically is like bringing forth bread from the earth. Okay, so it's like a combination of that sort. And the same goes for food other than bread prepared from wheat, barley, rye, oats, or spelt. Okay, so that's blessed are you, Lord, King of the universe, who creates various kinds of nourishment. So all these things were considered nourishments. So if it's like a cookie or pizza, sometimes some people say like pizza. Okay, things like that are not bread, you say a different blessing on them. And on wine or grape juice, you say, praise are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who creates fruit of the vine. Okay, so again, we're blessing the fruit, which is of the vine, which is again, God is giving us the ability to create wine. Okay, it doesn't come from the ground. Human beings have to be active in that sense. So these are blessings that are thanking God for even giving us these abilities to do these things. I'm saying this as opposed to page 715, that you bless the actual fruit because you don't have to intervene and do anything. So on fruit, you would say, praise are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who creates fruit of the tree. Okay, so here, this is more specific. This is the actual fruit. You pick it and you eat it. Okay, right? There's nothing to prepare in it, like the bread or the wine or the other food that's prepared from wheat. Or the next one, shechianu, we did already. Okay, but the next one, food which grows in the ground, like a potato, you would say, praise are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who creates fruit of the ground. Okay, so any fruit that grows on the ground, we say, Boré pri adama, like the strawberries. And on any other food and drink, which doesn't grow on the trees, okay, like water or
Schnapps.
what?
Schnapps.
Schnapps, beer, okay.
My favorite blessing.
Meat, eggs, okay, anything like that, fish, you would say, praise are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, at whose word all things coming to being. Now, to answer George's question, okay, if you don't have a phone, okay, no phone reception, and you can't ask Google what's the blessing, so you just need to remember one blessing, which is this one, okay? So other food and drink also includes, if you forget what category are the other blessings, so you just say this one before you eat it or drink it, and you're exempt.
What if you take a bite? Something, you still have to pray for it?
Okay, that's a very good question that's in the Talmud. What size do you say a blessing on? Because if I just eat a few crumbs of bread, and it's not nourishing to me, okay, do I still say a blessing? And the answer is no. Okay, you only say it on a sizable quantity. And then the biggest question in Judaism is, what is this quantity, is it? Okay, the rabbis over the centuries have been fighting about that. Okay, some say it's like the size of an olive. Okay, some say it's like more like the size of an egg. Okay, and then there are different things, different categories. Okay, and you really have to know a lot of that. So today it's translated more into grams, or like the exact amount. This is, by the way, is a very important question you're asking for Passover. Okay, when you have to drink 4 cups of wine, how much wine is it? It's like, if I don't want to drink so much wine that some people want to drink much more than 4 cups. it's an opportunity for them. But some people, but you have to drink 4 cups. So what's the minimum that you would have to drink to be, to be fulfilling the mitzvah of having 4 cups of wine? Okay, the same for matzah. I hate matzah, but if I want to say the blessing, I have to eat a certain amount of matzah to be fulfilling the mitzvah. Okay.
So how much wine should be?
So it's called revi'it kos. It's like 1/4 of a cup. So, but then the question is, what is a cup? The cup back then, 2,000 years ago, it's not the same size today. So some people say it's 87 grams. Some people say it's 113 grams. It's a very, very complicated matter. And it's even more interesting because sometimes people got inheritance from Europe, like from their great-great-grandfather. They got a wine glass that their great-great-grandfather used at the Seder. And now a rabbi comes and say, no, this is not enough. But he says, this is what my great-grandfather, he was very religious and observant. So people really have arguments now. And by the way, it's a very interesting historical issue because Professor Chaim Soloveitchik wrote about this. He was the son of Rabbi Soloveitchik, a great rabbi in America, in Boston. But he writes that after the Holocaust, a lot of the traditions were wiped away because a great-grandfather would pass the wine cup to his son, and he would pass it on to his son, and so on. So people, even though the Talmud would have all these debates, is this the amount? This is the amount. Like this is the amount. So whatever, But in the Holocaust, what happens is all these traditions were wiped away, and the people were wiped away. Okay, so there was no one to pass on the traditions to the next generation. So people started looking in the books, and the books were more strict in the measurements. So a lot of people said, you know what, we're going to do like new measurements. So there's like a whole crisis of debate in the rabbis today about what are the right measurements. So it's an interesting topic. Okay. Next is on page 734. Okay. So in the middle of the page, 735 on the left side in English, when gathered in a sukkah on the Shabbat Chol Hamoed Sukkot, recite the following bracha: Praise are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, whose mitzvot add holiness to our lives, and who gave us the mitzvah to dwell in the sukkah. Okay, so when we enter upon a sukkah and we sit down for a meal there, we say this blessing to dwell in the sukkah. And after the ritual washing of hands, we say the Netilat Yadayim, we say, praised are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, whose mitzvot add holiness to our lives, and who gave us the mitzvah of washing the hands. Okay, so before we eat the bread, we say this blessing, and then you see 2 chalot are used for the bracha over bread on Shabbat, and you say, praise are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who brings forth bread from the earth. So hamotzi lechem minaretz. Before we eat bread, we wash it in a holy. We wash our hands in a holy way, sort of like preparing ourselves to eat this special bread and its blessing. Okay.
So I'm a little confused on this. The one it says when gathered in the sukkah on a Shabbat of Chol Hamoed Sukkot, recite the following bracha. But don't you say that the very first time?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Every time. You say it the first night, you say it every day that you come in.
You're there.
Yeah, when you come there, right. Okay, on page 754 is another very important blessing, which is called Birkat Hamazon, the grace over meal. Okay, so now we did all these blessings before, there are also blessings after. You don't just walk away and say, oh, thank you, God, you say thank you to the hostess, but no, who really hosted you for this meal? Okay, it was really God. Okay, God who provided us with the ability to have this food and this delicious food and everything. we thank God. That's why we say grace after meal. What I'm saying is what Abraham did. Abraham sat in the heat of the desert, was looking for guests, and when they came, he brought them into his tent, and at the end of the meal, they said, thank you so much, this was delicious food. He said, no, don't thank me. Now we're going to do the grace after meal. Okay, and that's how he introduced them to the concept of God, that God is the one who provided us, all of us, with this ability for the food. So it's a special blessing. Okay, and 755 is that what we say, this blessing on Shabbat, holidays, and other festive occasions, the Song of the Ascent, Shira Ma'alot, there's a whole song, how to say that. And then when 3 or more adults have eaten together, one of them formally invites the others. Rabotai nevarech, friends, let us give thanks, and the others respond, and the leader repeats, Yehi Shem Adonai v'voach ma'ata v'ad olam, may God be praised now and forever. And if it's 10 or more adults are present, now on page 757, okay, on the left side, if 10 or more adults are present, the leader continues, with your consent, friends, let us praise our God, of whose food we have partaken. Okay, and the others respond, and the leader repeats, praise be our God, of whose food we have partaken, and by whose goodness we live. And then they all say, praise be he, and praise be his name. Baruch hu u'baruch shemo. And then they start singing on page 759. Okay, this famous song, it's in Hebrew, you see it on page 758. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Okay, that's the grace after meal that we sing. We also do it in our synagogue after meals. And there are 4 blessings here. The first one is on page 759 at the top. Okay, we're not going to read all of it. We're just going to read the last part of it. Okay, we praise you, Lord, who sustains all life. Okay, so we're thanking God for that. And then we are thanking God for the land that brings us the fruit of the land. And we conclude that on page 761. Okay, we praise you, Lord, for the land and for nourishment. Okay, so God continues blessing the land, so it gives us fruit, etc. In between, you see there's special blessings for Hanukkah, for Purim, or for Israel's Independence Day. Okay, you add these special blessings when it's Purim, Hanukkah, or Israel's Independence Day, you add these special blessings. Then on page 762, okay, we have the special blessing for remembering Jerusalem. And you also add special things for Shabbat. You see that on page 763. And on Rosh Chodesh and festivals. And then on page 764, that blessing's end. Rebuild Jerusalem. 765, rebuild Jerusalem, the holy city, soon, and in our day we praise you, Lord, who in his mercy rebuilds Jerusalem. Okay, amen. And then the last blessing is the thanking God for all the good things that he has brought into our lives, and hoping that we never go in want of goodness. And then there are just different chamanim, requests that we're asking God to bring us peace, to provide for us, to bring us back to our homeland, to bless our home, to bless our table, to bring us Eliyahu, the prophet. On page 767, you see blessings for when it's a bar or bat mitzvah, so the whole family's there, so we add special blessings for them and the family. We also may ask God to protect our land and also protect the state of Israel and bless her. And then we bless each one of the present people in that meal, or if there are too many people, so you don't say everyone by name, you just say a general blessing for everyone that is there. And on page 769, it's sort of like the conclusion of the grace over meal, which is long. You could take like 5 minutes to say it. If you sing it, if you read it, it could take like 1 minute, okay? In our synagogue, we like to sing it, so it takes longer. And here, these are the continue blessings, and you see that it ends with peace. May the Lord bless his people with peace. And that's, as I said, that's always the concluding prayer for every blessing and prayer in Judaism. Yes, Larry?
It has always appeared to be extremely long, like longer than 5 minutes if you're singing through it. It's just my own reaction to it.
More than 5 minutes?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
because you just sing very slowly.
I don't think so.
Let's
No,
time
just
it next time.
But-
Let's time it,
Okay.
okay?
I just think, it is long, and, I mean.
But it's nice because that's how people know it, you know. It's sort of like their only opportunity that week,
Well, I
maybe to
guess
say
so.
the grace.
I mean, I only learned it when I was a kid in USY, otherwise
Oh,
I wouldn't
okay.
have known it.
Wouldn't have known it. Okay, no, but people getting to know it more and more. In USY and in camps, they have different movements, things like Baruch Atah Adonai Pizza Pie, they say. You know, they add different funny words.
Stand up. Or
They
sit
stand
down.
up, they go like this, there's like, yeah.
Are there any guidelines when you say a prayer or when you sing a prayer? How do you?
Oh, say it or sing it? Well, that's an interesting question. The only reason to sing a prayer is really to exalt God, to sort of like beautify it, to make it more meaningful for yourself and for God. Because when you sing, when you use music, it's like very, very powerful. It really, something moves in you, in your soul. When there's good singing, when everyone's singing together, or where you're hearing someone leading and singing, it really elevates something in your mind and heart, right? When you hear good music, right? The same thing. On Sunday, I went to a gospel church. My son who was here said, "Dad, I want to see a gospel church." I'm like, okay, so I took off my kippah and went without a hat, and we went to the West Angeles church on Crenshaw Boulevard. It's in the city. It's like
That's almost.
50-minute drive. Right?
Koreatown? Like Crenshaw.
No, it's not far from the where the Oscars is, like the crypto. Yeah. No, Crenshaw in the city, not Crenshaw here. I don't know, maybe it's the same Crenshaw? Maybe it's gone away.
Yeah, but no, Crenshaw is at worship,
Yeah,
so it's not.
No, it's
very, very into the city. It's like a black neighborhood there.
Right.
And everyone was so nice and welcoming, and it was like, handing us the communion, which we said, no, thank you, we don't want that. But we sat down and said, sit wherever you want, like there's no reserved seating. And then they started, with the singing and everything. It was like, wow, it was like very,
Holy
very powerful.
rollers.
What?
They're called holy rollers.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
maybe.
And there were like 30 people on the bima, okay, you see? A lot of very passionate, okay? They have big screens, okay?
Wow.
Yeah, it's very, very, okay? Very, very powerful. You see like the big screens and everything, it's like a mega church.
Did he bring his tavor, his automatic weapon? It would have been appropriate.
Yeah. So it was really very, very impressive to see how the music elevates people. And when they were reading, they were all standing and reciting it together. It was really beautiful. It's not, I'm not sure this is the kind of service that would go here at CNT, but it made me think that we need maybe more music, more singing, the amazing choir. Maybe we need like a professional choir or something like that would get people, more excited. Obviously, you need a budget. I think they have a huge budget there, because in the middle of services, there's like a, yeah, they pass, people are collecting money. It was like, wow. I'm like, oh, we need to also do that. That was like very impressive. And it's clear, because like running a church like that with all that they have there, it's a big operation.
Years ago, decades ago, I set up with our then current cantor, a black church coming here and joining us.
Oh.
And it was all set up.
Uh-huh.
It was choreographed by the cantor.
Uh-huh.
And at the very last moment, the black church
Oh,
killed
canceled it?
it
Oh.
for maybe political reasons.
Mm.
But we did strive way back then.
Interesting.
It's long before it was the
Yeah.
thing to do. But we tried.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So in any event, the thing is that their service wasn't so long. I mean, it was more than 2 hours. Okay, and we actually left after an hour.
It's 2 hours long.
Yeah. It's
That's
like an hour
unusual
and
for,
Mhm.
that's unusually long.
Yeah. But it's exciting. You don't want to leave, because like everyone's talking. It's very powerful, and singing and clapping, and it's just a lot of good energy in the room. But the amount of prayer they need to say is not long. It's just like every song takes a few minutes, etc. So in Judaism, as we said, we have a whole prayer book to say, so you can't sing it all. You have to say parts of it. So in a more orthodox setting, people just mumble it, say very quickly. What we do, we abbreviate parts of the service, so there's more singing and there's more, intention of the heart when you do the singing. So it really depends. So this grace over the meal, you could say it very quickly. You could say it in 1 minute, or you could sing it and it's more meaningful, etc. So like if I do this in the middle of the week, so I say to myself, I say it very quickly. Okay, I have an abbreviated version. Okay, so I don't read my credit card number. I take it here. Okay, but it's by my credit card. Okay, so when I come to pay, I also remember to say the blessing. So on both sides, small print. Okay, I have everything I need, and this is like in the abbreviated version of the grace after the meal. So as they come and do whatever they do with my credit card, I get to say the blessing until it comes back.
That's like work, though.
Yeah, I can't give them that. They try to, they can't charge with that. They have to have the card though. Okay, on page, okay, so actually there's so many blessings we could talk about. We're not going to do all of them. I'm just going to point out that on page 771, we have all these blessings after a wedding meal. So there's like special blessings after a wedding meal, which is the same. They're also, when we talk about marriage, we'll also talk about that. And 775, you see at a house of mourning, okay? So when you do like a special meal, a meal of condolence, so there's a special blessing to say that. On page 779, there's an alternative version. There's like a shorter version of the grace over meal. You see it's only 2 pages as opposed to the 6 pages of the longer one. So this is a much shorter version. This is similar more to the version that I have. And on 782, there's a blessing after food that did not contain a bread. So it's a much quicker blessing. Let's say you eat a fruit, so you want to say a blessing after the fruit. So it's a very quick blessing. And it continues on 785 as well. For at the bottom, a blessing after all other food. Okay? So these are basically, the main blessings that I want to go over. And I also wanted to go over, what? Yeah, so I'm going to talk about next week. So you're going to leave these sheets here. I also wanted to talk about who could lead prayer. Okay. Wait.
This from the Talmud?
Whoops. not good. Yeah, so actually I actually took this from a website I found. I just thought that would be
I thought it was
interesting.
supposed to have someone have a pleasant voice.
Right, so this had a very good explanation of who could lead prayer. But who could lead prayer? Basically, anyone could lead a prayer, okay? However, in the more traditional form of Judaism, you'd have to be bar mitzvah, a boy, not a girl. Girls didn't lead services, okay? And so you'd have to be bar mitzvah, you have to be a man, and in conservative Judaism, it's a girl as well could lead it after bat mitzvah. That's why we also have women cantors, and also you have to be knowledgeable of the prayer. You need to know what you're doing, okay? Because if you make a mistake, you're sort of like you're leading the services for everyone else. So you have to have a pleasant voice, because if your voice is not pleasant, people don't want to, people are not thinking about the prayer and praising God. They're more like, when is this over? And how do we get this guy off the bima? Okay. So you don't want people to focus on that. And then there's also a debate. Does he have to have a beard? Does he have to be married? Okay. Because like, for example, on Yom Kippur, they say you have to be married. Okay. Because when you're married, you are more, like situated in life. You are praying for your family. You're more established in life. Today, it's not so much a rule. They let anyone do it. But in the Talmud ages, it was like important for people, because if you didn't have a family back then, okay, it's like exactly like what is, because everyone was married back then. Everyone had a family. So if you would be a male in your 30s, you wouldn't be married without kids. So are you able to lead the congregation and pray for everyone in that sense? Okay, so that's where these distinctions come from. But today, anyone could lead services. And in many small congregations, the leader of the prayer service could be anyone who steps forward to volunteer. This person is known as the shaliach tzibur, the messenger for the congregation. Some congregations will designate one specific layperson to lead services, particularly on Shabbat and festivals. This person is known as the Baal Tfilah. Okay, for example, Larry is the Baal Tfilah, the master of prayer. Many congregations, however, take the more professional route and hire a chazan, a cantor. Okay, so you don't have to have a cantor to lead services. People sometimes don't understand that. Anyone can lead services, as long as they have a pleasant voice, and as long as they're over a certain age, and as long as they're trained in what they're doing. So you don't have to have a professional cantor.
There are a lot of small congregations that don't have a cantor.
Right. This is exactly what it's saying. So it says here, the chazan, the cantor, is a trained vocal professional and is a recognized member of the congregational clergy. In addition to leading services, the chazan, the cantor, is often responsible for teaching the youth and preparing them for bat mitzvah, while sharing some of the pastoral duties with the rabbi. Okay, but again, you don't have to have a rabbi, even not to lead the funeral. You don't have to have a cantor or even a rabbi. Anyone could lead a funeral as long as they know what they're doing. Okay, this is important to understand the difference between Judaism and other religions, where you have to have a priest, okay, to absolve you from your sins. It has to be a priest, someone who's ordained, by the church. Okay, in Judaism, no one can absolve you from your sins. Okay, so that solves that problem. But you don't need a rabbi to marry you. You don't need a rabbi, okay, to bury you. Okay, anyone who is trained to do these things can do that. Okay. Right, and some of that perform in the right way. So while the term chazan is found in the Mishnah, this refers to a general synagogue helper type of position. It was not until the Gaonic area, which is 600 to 1000 CE, that the community's prayer leader assumed the formal title of chazan, cantor. The great rabbinic leaders of the generations that followed the Gaonim included the chazan in their discussion of synagogue professionals, and requires chazanim, cantors in plural, to be especially upright people, acceptable to the congregation, and well-versed in the Torah. Okay, reading from the Torah, as we learned last week, is a very complicated job. So you need someone who's well-trained and can learn how to do that quickly. Different styles of chazanut, cantorial performance, development in different regions. In some area of Eastern Europe, the chazan sounded more like an opera singer. The golden age of chazanut was in the 20th century between the two world wars, when chazanim would even offer concerts to pack concert houses, okay? So today the role of the cantor has changed, but in the past it was like, a very big role. There were opera singers, people would do, concerts, and it was mainly an Ashkenazi position. In the Sephardi world, you would have more, it was a more egalitarian sense of everyone would lead services. Okay, but then in the Ashkenazi world, there were too many fights about who's going to lead services, and they wanted to hire like a professional, and they wanted the more operatic voice. Okay, today the younger generation that I'm speaking to are more turned off by the operatic voice. They say if we want to go to opera, we go to opera. Okay, we don't need to go to synagogue to do that. We want someone who's more engaging, someone who could get us to sing as well in that sense. So when a community now seeks for a cantor, they seek for, at least, the younger generation, that's what they're looking for.
That's interesting, because, I've got recordings of the early cantors in the 20th century. And they were fantastic.
Yeah. I love listening to them in the record. Okay, it's like okay. So we talked about Hagomel today. We did the mitzvah blessing, the blessings of the light, eating and drinking. We did the mezuzah, Tfilah Haderech. We did. Okay. Talked about prayer leaders. Okay, next week we're going to talk about liturgical changes and the ancient Cairo Gniza, okay, which is its own fascinating story. So we will conclude with that. And I'm just going to write this here so I don't forget. Okay. What else did we do? Okay, yeah, that would be a pretty thorough course. Maybe we'll talk about this God answer prayers. Okay, maybe I'll get an answer from God until next week. And why?
I said the answer may be no.
Yeah, maybe you need to help me with this part. What do you think? Okay, this is a question. This is homework. Does God answer prayer? Write a short answer, okay, and bring it next week, but research it, okay? Write what you think, but also bring, backing up to what your opinion would be.
Excuse me, are you gonna talk about the morning prayers?
Yeah, so that's next week, because that has to do with liturgical changes, okay? We're gonna compare what's in these sheets is what is in the traditional Siddur that Orthodox Jews still use, and we're going to compare it with what conservative Judaism changes that are made. How do you make changes in liturgy? Why do you make changes in prayers? We're going to talk about that and the values that stand behind that. So please give me back those sheets. It was a little premature to send them today, but we had, I think, a very good understanding today of all the other blessings that are not the usual prayers. Okay? Good job. Here. Thank you so much, Autumn.
I didn't separate it, okay.
Yeah, you have to separate them. Okay, goodbye to Zoom, people. Bye, Della. Bye to my parents.
Bye, Rabbi.